So I could either be a stay-at-home mom and struggle with the making the money part, or I could be super successful in my career and struggle in raising my own kids. And I was like, that's not actually true. And so I went on a journey and I really wanted to be able to find a balance that was important for me, where I could realize a life, create a life where I could have both time and money freedom. Because to me, having one or the other is not really freedom at all. You're always trading one for the other.
Hello, and welcome to the Shift Your Day Job podcast. I'm Brittany Cates, your host on this incredible journey of career transformation. Get ready for inspiring stories, valuable insights, and a roadmap to shift your mindset towards a more fulfilling professional life. In each episode, we explore the remarkable journeys of individuals who made a career change, offering motivation, strategies, and the confidence to pursue your dreams. Whether you're feeling stuck, contemplating a change, or just seeking a dose of inspiration, this podcast is your weekly companion. Tune in every Thursday as we uncover the secrets to shifting your day job. Welcome to the final Season 1 episode of the Shift Your Day Job podcast. Before introducing today's guest, I would like to share the announcement that I've officially released my Season 2 trailer. Come this February, it will officially have been a year since starting the podcast, and with this new season will come some new branding, but you can still expect to continue hearing from some amazing career transitioners and gain valuable insights and advice from those who have gone before you. I'm so grateful that I've gotten this far with the podcast and that you've joined me for the ride. And I look forward to continuing this journey as we move into another year of amazing episodes. So thank you again for being here, and make sure to check out the Season 2 trailer, subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a thing, and share this exciting news with a friend. This one is extra special because it's the first time I went live on LinkedIn to record an episode. And I'm so grateful to have had my guest, Anita Anello, by my side as I ventured into this new format. She was so generous and gracious and patient as we tried to figure out how to navigate LinkedIn Live, and her wisdom and warmth made all the difference. Anita is a former software executive turned entrepreneur and homeschool mom. She shares her inspiring journey of transitioning from a high-pressure corporate job to balancing her career and family life on her own terms. In this conversation, Anita opens up about the societal pressures women face when trying to balance career success and effective parenting. She discusses how she navigated her career transitions, managed financial stability, and achieved both time and money freedom. Throughout the episode, Anita provides invaluable insights into setting priorities, creating high-ticket offers, and maintaining a mindset of abundance. Whether you're balancing your own career and family or considering a shift into entrepreneurship, this episode is packed with advice that you don't want to miss. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's dive in to this enlightening conversation with Anita Anello. Hi, Anita. Thank you so much for joining me on the Shift Your Day Job podcast. How are you doing today?
Oh, so good. I'm so glad we figured this out for you. This is so exciting. I love going
Yeah.
live.
Thank you for all your help. I really appreciate it. And your patience. And I'm excited to hear your story. So, can you just start with where your career began and how it's evolved and what you're doing today?
You bet, Brittany. Gosh, years ago, I was a software executive for a big global organization called SAP. And I loved what I did for so many years until I didn't. My husband and I started having kids. And I remember before I had children, I would get on planes because I traveled all the time. I ran professional services. We were all over the US and Canada all the time. And I remember getting on planes every week and talking to young moms, and they would say, "Oh, my toddler's at home." And inside, my heart would be breaking for them. I don't know if I could do that. And so then we started having kids. I'd had an older stepson. We started having babies. And it was really hard when I went back off of maternity leave to go and travel all the time. As a matter of fact, for about almost the first year after our daughter was born, my husband would travel with me and our baby so that I could go and work and do things like nurse the baby and that kind of good stuff. And then we could stay together as a family. And then at about, oh gosh, we moved from the East Coast back to the West Coast where I'm from. And um, it just wasn't possible anymore. Life starts to change, starts to have more kids. We had my stepson was with us full time. I really enjoyed what I did in that consulting space and in that area of expertise for so many years. I love serving clients at a really high level. I loved being able to even take on those hard projects, what we call escalation projects in the software industry, where projects are like massively overtime, over budget, and on the verge of lawsuit. That was my sweet spot. And then what I did, Brittany, is my mom's heart for many years was just really aching to be at home and to homeschool. And several years into having children, I made it through really, I'll put it in this context. I felt like God put it on my heart to homeschool our kids. Years went by and the kids were little and starting to grow up. And I would look at my husband, I'd be like, I really want to be at home with them. And he would tell me things like, babe, you cannot leave your job. Like your income is significant. It takes care of most everything in our household. There was a lot of you can't, and a lot of what we call heated fellowship in those conversations. I made it through a ton of layoffs. And then eventually I had the opportunity to retire young and come home and homeschool our kids full time. And then about 6 years ago, kids are getting a little bit older. Now I had like almost teenagers in the house. And so I started building businesses. And that's where I'm at today. So,
Amazing.
yeah.
I love that you got to retire early. That's really cool to hear and probably makes people curious to do that. Right. The fact you made it through all the layoffs, which is woo, but
Yeah.
then to be able to retire early and it really facilitated what your goals were anyway.
Yeah. And for us, the big thing for me, like it was super important that we financially had a foundation to be able to do those things. So, what I'm never recommending to anybody, although sometimes it works this way, I would not necessarily recommend to any mother or father that's in the workplace, especially if you're the primary breadwinner in your household, to all of a sudden go, I'm done. Let me go ahead and quit my job. So for my husband and I, we had a plan financially for me to have an exit strategy so that I could come home and spend more time with the kids and then he could rise in his career. Like we've had these seasons in our lives. And it wasn't easy because my income was significantly higher than my husband's for many years and still has always been that way in my career. And so we shifted, we adjusted, we planned, we did the things that we needed to do so that we could still thrive in those seasons. I think it's makes the transition to do something big like what we're talking about just a little bit easier when you have a solid foundation in which to start from. And then even when it came back to time to starting businesses again, like I had owned a software company many years ago. And when I started my journey as an entrepreneur, it was like, let's talk about it. Let's have a plan. Like, how are we going to manage now having us both work again and then being able to homeschool kids in the midst of that and just all those elements. And so, really, the underlying message in there is when you're married, like having healthy conversations and intentionally knowing where you're going. I've always had in our marriage, we knew what we wanted to do in our marriage and with our kids and in our businesses. And we knew what those priorities were. And so that made it so much easier to say intentionally, we're going to, on purpose, like pour into our marriage and raise our kids in a way that allows us to school them at home and those kinds of things. And then that actually, Brittany, made it so much easier for us to say there were some things that were total non-negotiables. And we could just push those off to the side and then be able to say, okay, how can we build the life that we want around those elements?
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that example because I think it is so important to remember that everybody's different
Mhm.
and has their own strategy of going about really big decision like this, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, the recommendation is being intentional
Mhm.
and planning ahead as much as possible.
Yeah.
And when you are in a relationship, when you are married and you have a family that you're concerned about,
Oh, yeah.
it's really important to be a team, right? In making those decisions.
Yeah. That was the other part is when I was starting to get this stir in my spirit for doing something entrepreneurial wise. What I did know is I wasn't willing to trade my kids for dollars. That's like language that I use. So if you're listening and you're like, oh, I would never talk that way. That's okay. Those are thoughts that I have. If I can go back to work in an 80-hour work week, and then where does that leave me in raising my kids?
Yeah.
And get back the title and the money and the accolades and the stuff, or I could come up with a new plan. And that's where the journey of being an entrepreneur and having more time freedom, more money freedom, and being able to like create again, like intentionally create a life around the things that were important to us in our household, not just me as an individual, not just me as like a woman climbing in her career, but really recognizing there's more people in the conversation that are depending on me and that I need to consider. I think sometimes when we wear these hats of like mother and wife and entrepreneur, it's helpful to understand that there's a lot of components that are going on there that need to be considered.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that because I do realize that when it comes to women who may not be in a career right now that they're excited about and they would love something new, all of those things come into play that often are excuses to stay. And I use the word excuses lightly, like we could replace that with a lot of other words, but
Yeah.
those are the elements, often the outside things that keep you just continuing to do the same thing over and over again. And
Yeah.
so being able to take all of those things into consideration and be strategic about how you're going to still take care of yourself and do it in a way that's going to benefit everybody. This isn't about being selfish and just suddenly quitting your job. It's considering all those things and making the best decision for you and your family while still helping you get to a place that makes you feel more empowered, more confident,
Yeah.
and more happy.
And sometimes, Brittany, I remember when I was a young mom and I have older moms tell me, Anita, maybe it's not the season to do some of that stuff. And to be candid about it and really transparent, there were some days where I was like, you know what? She's right. And there were others days where I'd be like, I don't like that. Like I want what I want so badly. I want whatever it was. Like maybe when I retired and I wanted a brand new car again, and I was like, no, I can't do that, or whatever the thing is, you can fill in the blanks. But the point in that is, I do think it's important to acknowledge the season that you're in life. The things that I can do when my babies are tiny and they need me in a different way than they do when they're teenagers. They still need us when they're teenagers, but they need us in a different way. I can see that now looking back. It would have been amazing if I was able to acknowledge sometimes the seasons that I was in and just actually be able to find rest in that. I don't rest very easily. I'm super driven. I like to be able to get these big visions and then figure out, like in my brain, I can get a big vision and figure out something that feels like a roadblock to other people and work out a project plan and solve it right then and there. And then I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's go do this thing. I love doing that. That's one of my secret weapons and being able to help clients that are stuck. But sometimes acknowledging that it's a season to be able to go forward full bore, and sometimes acknowledging maybe it's not. So here's some of the markers for me that I would notice when it was not the season to go full bore. It seemed every time I tried to take on contract work in my area of specialty, somebody would get sick or injured. Now, nobody in that season, nobody ended up in the hospital or anything like that. But my kids would start get sick. Or the other marker for me was if the billable work that was coming in all of a sudden took priority over the other priorities that I knew that I had in my life that were most important. That if it was like out of order, then all of a sudden I'd become aware of, oh, okay, it's not the season to go do those things. Right. And so paying attention to the markers in our own life that are saying, like, yes, the door is open, take another step forward, or maybe not, maybe not. Now, I'm not talking about situations sometimes we're just in a situation in life financially. We got to go do what we got to do to be able to make ends meet. So, see how what we're talking about here, what I love what you said earlier is we're all paying attention to where we are in our own lives. We're using some of these principles in life to be successful in whatever season we're at. And then we're resting in that. We're not comparing ourselves. I don't know why sometimes women have a harder time not comparing ourselves to our best buddies or friends or somebody we online, somebody we admire or whatever. But then really recognizing like, nope, this is where it would be super helpful. You know what I would do? I'd go to my husband and I would say, babe, I have this idea to do this thing. And he'd be like, that sounds like a great idea, but you have a lot on your plate already. Do you think that it's worthwhile to take on one more thing? And that would cause me to take a step back and be like, oh, I don't know. Let me think about it. In our household, think about it, pray about it, talk about it, and then we'd make a decision. And here's what else I know that even when it feels that's the only way, that's the only solution, don't we know that's actually not the truth? There's always new opportunities that come up. There's always more clients to be able to serve. You never have to build your business around clients that you don't like serving, that are horrible to you or don't pay you enough money. That's 100% no. I'm never going to work with somebody who is a horrible client to work with or doesn't want to pay my rate. Those are just non negotiables anymore. And when you're at that spot where you can recognize this is the framework that the things I'm going to do and not do in life, then it actually makes the decision so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Which brings up this idea of values, right? Which you did mention earlier. You and your husband came together and decided these are our values and this is the framework we're going to live within. Once you have established that, it is easier to then make decisions around that. And so I like talking about that a lot because if you haven't sat down and evaluated, okay, what are the things that I value in my life? And is my job fitting into that? Like your example of if it's taking priority over these other things, I don't like that. It doesn't feel good to me. I want to spend more time with my family, whatever it is. Then it helps you realize where you are. Those examples you gave were amazing to help people think about, okay, how does that look in my life right now? And then you can start making decisions from a better informed place
Yeah.
for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. What was interesting too, Brittany, is a couple of years ago, you were talking about feelings. So I had started to dabble in some different entrepreneurial adventures. I had started an Amazon business. It was amazing until COVID hit. It wasn't amazing when every single warehouse in the United States shut down and we had product to try to get everywhere, all that kind of stuff. And then I can tell you in all honesty, this was a season where I didn't feel like going forward and doing some things. So let me just tell a quick story. So about 2.5 years ago, in about maybe like a 6 to 8 week window, we had a situation in our household. My husband, we were just having some challenges, struggling, just genuinely struggling in our marriage and wrestling through some of those things. And then my husband went in for an outpatient procedure and an hour later ended up in the emergency room and spent a week in the cardiac wing. And while he was in the hospital, I got a call from his business partner. And he said to me, Anita, I'm so sorry for what's going on with your husband. I'm so sorry for the season that you guys are in. And we actually need to stop payroll for him. So he actually lost his job. And at that time, he was the primary breadwinner in our household, all within this really short window of time. So I did not feel like going back to work full time at that season. Was fully entrenched in continuing to homeschool our kids full time and starting businesses on the side. But regardless of my feelings, we needed to do something different. And so one of the things that we did is I started crafting and different offers that were around an area of expertise that I had. And I mentioned that earlier. Like my sweet spot is helping those 7 to 8 figure projects that are a lot of times like big chunks of time behind schedule and big dollar amounts of money over budget and maybe on the verge of lawsuit. So I started reaching out to my network of friends, people that I had known in the industry that I had been in and started getting on the phone call, not telling them, not sharing with anybody what was going on in my personal life, just offering, showing up and serving. Hey, I know that I'm really good at it and I want to be able to serve other clients in this capacity. So some things came together and I remember talking to a girlfriend of mine. I was like, "Oh, gosh, you know what? I need some clients that are going to, I had my criteria. I need clients that are going to do this and that are not going to do this, this, and this because of my husband was in a season where coming out of the hospital from a heart situation was not able to go back to work right away. And so I knew I almost had a little bit of a mental checklist. I'm like a task writer downer. And so I had this mental checklist in my head of I can do this and I can't do this. And I started finding clients that were perfect fit for our household and exactly what I was looking for, exactly the sweet spot and the experience that I already had, what I call your specialized knowledge, right? Work all of us together like we're good at some things. I used to say like maybe in your 20s, but nowadays you can find people that are in their 20s that are like building these multi-million-dollar businesses because they're good at something. And so those things are really happening today. But don't we know we have these areas of specialized knowledge and these areas of expertise? And so when you build an offer that's irresistible to somebody else, and you can get them in the marketing world, they say you're going to get them out of pain and into pleasure. Really, it just means somebody is hurting and they need the services you have, and then you can get them to be successful and you take them on a journey. And I started talking to clients and it was incredible because I knew that I could solve their problems. Can you imagine if somebody comes in and they're like, Anita, I'm millions of dollars over budget and I'm years behind schedule and you can take care of this for me? And I'm like, yes, because that's what I do. Yes, I'm an expert in this space. We're going to walk through my system where we're going to assess your projects. We're going to help you resolve the conflict. We're going to get you back on track. And blah, 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 all the different pillars of what I do in my system. We're going to get your business up and running so that you can grow your revenues and serve your clients at the highest level. Software implementation is really hard. And the bigger the system, the bigger the company, the more complex the projects are, the harder they are. They don't take, like we install software in our businesses online and it maybe takes minutes or hours. These are not those kinds of projects. They are complex and they take years to get through. But can you imagine if somebody shows up and says, hi, I'm here, like I can solve your problem for me? Then all of a sudden you realize, I don't care. In some cases, I don't care what it costs. It's going to be a discount to hire Anita because she's going to get me out of this struggle that I'm in and help me get back to making money and serving my clients. It's a yes for me. Like, where do I sign up? How do I talk to somebody that has this specialized knowledge? And so I started doing that. I started serving clients at a really high level in a way that was manageable for me and my household. When you have a season where you go from like marriage upset to medical crisis to job loss in like an 8 week, I think it was like 6 to 8 week period, I could show up and serve my clients and my family in an incredible way that helped bring me balance, helped bring me joy. It helped us to pay off an incredible amount of medical debt in a really short window of time. It just brought like new life back to our household in a way that we hadn't had in many years. It was so refreshing to know that, say, wait a minute, I can do this for me and I can help others do the same for their household. Can you imagine how incredible it can be if we could help others in the area of our expertise and then help others do the same thing? Like, Brittany, it's just totally opened up the door for new possibilities. It's allowed my business to like scale like 6 times of what we were before. We've had just incredible increase by being able to show up and just serve first.
Because it sounds like it was a difficult time, right? And we all have those things that come up in life and you navigate them as best as you can. And I love this talking about, okay, how do I take, even if I don't feel like going to this job or if I don't feel like go, if I can start applying the strengths that I have that I know I'm confident in and it makes me feel good to serve in that way, then it's going to change the way that things go. So, for instance, if you're at a job that you really don't enjoy, but you're able to find a way to use your strengths at that job, it's going to make your experience that much more full and better until
Mm.
you can find something else that holistically might fit your ideal job better.
Yeah.
Or in your instance, going back to work, you found work that was meaningful to you,
Mhm.
that you used strengths. And as you take action, the feelings will come, right?
Yeah.
And the feelings will instill themselves if you're going about it in a way that you've proven to yourself in the past, right? Like, I got
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Our brains always are keeping like an evidence file of success and failures. So if you feel like you're stuck in your business or your career right now, I would encourage somebody. I'm just going to get really practical and tactical for a second. Pull out a piece of paper and start writing down for yourself. Maybe set a timer at a minimum of 15 minutes. Maybe you'll find that you get 15 minutes, you keep going. But I would write down every win that you've had that you can think about. Start with just in the last year. I was a win over here. Even it can be, I got up and I washed my hair, or I had this big deal that came through, whatever it is that you classify as a win, and start acknowledging by writing those down. Don't just think about it, like literally write them down with pen and paper. And then you go back and review that list and say, wait a minute, can actually accomplish some really amazing things. Even in just the last year, if you want, you can stretch it out a little bit farther and go last 10 years or something like that. But what that does is it reminds ourselves of, hey, wait a minute, I can do some things. So if you feel stuck, like I said, in your business or in your career, starting to create that evidence file and remind your brain, wait a minute, I know some things. The other thing you could do is you could meet with a close friend or a work colleague and say, can you just remind me of how amazing I am? If I would have said those things to myself or out loud maybe 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, before I had a lot of this shifting in my mindset, I would have been like, that's just silly. No, I'm not doing that. But we really actually need that. We need to remind ourselves of how talented we are. We need to remind, for some of us, we need to remind ourselves of how talented we are, how successful we've been, the things that we've overcome. Now, I hope for somebody who's listening right now, as we go through and do this live stream, I hope that whatever circumstances are in your life, they're not as dramatic as they were in my life, right? To be real about it, to come to a near death situation with my husband and be able to walk away from that and have both of us be better on the other side, health wise, relationally wise, spiritually, like all those elements, and to have our family be now thriving. I hope we don't have to get to those situations. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But what I'm saying is, when you start acknowledging the good things that are happening in your life, then you actually start to focus on those instead of focusing on the feelings of, I don't like this. This is awful. This job stinks. This person is yucky. You can fill in whatever language you use in there. It's all about what we choose to focus on. If I choose to focus on everything in my life is not that great right now, that's actually what I'm going to see. That's what my mind is going to show me all day long. That's what I'm going to see all day long. But if I choose to say, you know what, this situation is not that bad. This situation might have a different way to look at it. This situation is, maybe people are better, they're nicer, they're kinder than I thought that they were. Then that's actually when I tell myself, that's what my mind's going to start. We now live in the Austin, Texas area, and I could walk around or drive around all day long and think, people here are horrible drivers. Or I could be like, okay, there's a lot of people who've moved to the Austin area in the last 10 years from all these different areas around the country. So there's all these driving styles that kind of converge on one another. See how the difference just in that little thing? Like, I could say, oh, I don't like that about the area that I now live in, which we love. Or I could be like, yeah, you know what? It's not that big of a deal. Right. So our minds are always looking to be informed. Our thoughts totally control everything and outcomes in our lives. And the older I get, the more I realize how important my thoughts are, how important what I say is. You'll notice even in this live, like I like almost correct my language mid sentence because I'm very mindful of what I'm thinking and then what I'm saying because I know that my words are going to create my successes for tomorrow or not. And so I really want to pay attention. I want to be a good student of learning how to train my thoughts to go in the direction of what I really intend for the outcome of my life to be. And that's just where I'm on my journey. I want to be a really good student of learning how to think better, communicate better, and then have better outcomes in life.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something interesting to consider, right? Am I being cognitive and conscious of what I'm saying and how I'm communicating? And
Yeah.
is it serving me and where I want to go?
Mhm.
Um, or could I make a course correction here or there?
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned when you were looking for clients, you had a set of criteria and you were finding those clients. What do you think it was that made that happen?
I think I'll go back to our intentions as a family. We've always known what our priorities are. And so I started there. I started with I now have a husband that's at home that has to recover from a major medical situation and then eventually he had heart surgery. I know that I had kids that needed to be educated and I wasn't going to let that slide just because I needed to get more clients and take on more contract work in that capacity. And so starting with that as my foundation and then knowing myself well enough to know I know that I can drive myself really hard and not balance out with enough exercise and rest and eating healthy and drinking enough water and those kind of things. And I wanted to be able to have room in my life to still take care of myself when I needed to take care of my husband and my children in a different way than we had ever really experienced before. In the corporate world, Brittany, I remember getting a lot of the messaging that told me that I could only have one priority or the other. I could either have time freedom, and if I chose time freedom up here, then I could not have money freedom. Or I could have money freedom and have a great paying job, then I wouldn't have time freedom. That's the messaging that I always got in the corporate world. I was like, I don't understand how you're pitching me this HR marketing campaign that says I can have work life balance when you're asking me to work 80 hours a week or even 50 or 40 hours a week. Like when I'm dedicating that much time to somebody else, I personally have a hard time recognizing like, where's the balance here when I'm giving you so much of my life? And then all these other areas that are important are not being taken care of at a good, at least a decent level, shall we say. And so one of the things that I've noticed as an entrepreneur is that number one, that's a lie that is told to us that I could have only one freedom or the other. So I could either be a stay-at-home mom and struggle with the making the money part, or I could be super successful in my career and struggle in raising my own kids. And I was like, that's not actually true. And so I went on a journey and I really wanted to be able to find a balance that was important for me where I could realize a life, create a life where I could have both time and money freedom. Because to me, having one or the other is not really freedom at all. You're always trading one for the other. So I really became a student and went on a journey and started to press in a little bit harder and a little bit more to figure out how can I, and actually I would say there's never been a better time for women in the marketplace post COVID, 2024, there's never been a better time for us to build businesses as women. I'm so excited for the young women that are coming up after me. I'm so excited for my daughter. I'm so excited for my sons and their future wives. There's never been a better time to actually step into the marketplace and either have gig economy kind of work and piece together what you wanted. There's never been more freedom in the United States than we've had right now to be able to do some of these things that we want to do, right? With all the different variations, all the ways to make money. I just love it. There's so much abundance around us for ways to build businesses, ways to serve people, all that kind of stuff. The other thing that's super cool, do you realize there's actually more high ticket buyers than there's ever been? So, Brittany, listen to this. There's a book Oh gosh, it'll come to me. I think it's laid out in 2X is Better Than 10X by Dan Sullivan, Benjamin Hardy. It's a marketing book by Dan Sullivan. I'll try to remember the title of it. But essentially, there's a study that's done of millionaires in the United States at the beginning of 2024. Now we're recording this in November. So it's grown. That's the whole point in saying that. 22 million millionaires in the United States alone. Now, when you start looking at affluence, a millionaire is like the bottom of the barrel. That's like the lowest rung on the ladder when it comes to wealth building. So you go from like affluent millionaires to multimillionaires to decamillionaires and then up to billionaires and all that kind of stuff. There's never been more wealth than what we have right now. The amount, and the reason I say that is because it's to shift somebody's mindset from the mindset of there's not enough and poverty and lack are what dominate my thinking to there's more than enough. So there's more than enough high ticket buyers, clients that are out there for you, for me, for everybody who's listening, for everybody who will hear the podcast recording. There's more than enough high ticket buyers out there as long as we know how to create high ticket offers. We no longer have to be in the position where we're pitching our services for the lowest amount possible. We can actually create engaging and attractive high ticket offers to attract the right kind of high ticket buyers, serve them at what I call like a Ritz Carlton or a Four Seasons level of service, like 5-star service, and recognize that there's more than enough of that kind of business to be able to go around. So, one of the clients I just finished serving was a client that paid me over $600,000 to be able to do the things that I can do best. And you might hear those numbers and think, oh, no, I couldn't do that. That's not true. There's actually more high ticket buyers for high ticket offers that are crafted properly than there's ever been in the history of the United States. And that is so exciting to me. And you start to realize, wait a minute, there's more than enough business to go around for you, for me, for everybody's listening, with more than enough to satisfy the needs of our household, with more than enough left over. And when we start to recognize that and realize that, and then create high ticket offers around that with what high ticket buyers are looking for, then like the world of possibility starts to open up to us. Then we start to get both the money freedom and the time freedom coming together. And isn't that incredible that we live in a time where the barrier to entry to start your own business is as low as it's ever been before? You can go out and serve clients at an incredible high level and start to attract in those high ticket buyers in a way that you never even knew possible. So I just love that. I'm having more fun in my business now, Brittany, than I've had in 5.5 years, understanding how to create high ticket offers, package up my services in a way that serve and bring value to somebody else. So not about me, not about my education, not about what I can do for somebody, but in a way that communicates value to somebody else and gets them, like I said earlier, out of the pain they're in into the desired result that they want and be able to just bless them, honor them, serve them in incredible ways. I love that. It's so much fun. It's real.
Yes. It goes back to what we talked about earlier about utilizing your strengths and this idea that there's an abundance of wealth it versus the scarcity mindset that um, previous generations have maybe instilled in us to think, oh, there's nothing more than this job I've been doing for 20 years or whatever, and I have to stick it out. Otherwise, I'm never going to make enough money. No, there's so many opportunities and
Yeah.
possibilities. And once you start opening your mind to it, learning about things that maybe you didn't know, like this fact, and it starts getting your wheels turning and getting you to think in a different way. Something you said earlier made me think of the phrase that, or the question I like to ask myself sometimes is this thought serving me? And if this thought is not serving me, then I can choose another thought, right? Like
Yeah.
I can choose to see it in a different way because whatever I decide to focus on, then I'm going to see more and more evidence of it.
Yeah.
We really have so much power within ourselves that we often don't give ourselves credit for. We don't tap into enough to realize how much abundance is waiting for us as soon as we open the door to it.
You said that so well. Yeah. When we think about well meaning parents, grandparents, and their mindsets, I just want to honor that in some cases, some of the information that they shared with us, like there was not enough to go around, that was very real for their generations. And I would just say that it's not necessarily the truth today.
Yep.
So, where we've heard some of that information that's been passed down from generation to generation, as it was actually accurate for them and their seasons that they lived in. I always like to go back and instead of saying, gosh, I wish my parents or my grandparents would have taught me differently. No, they taught me what they could, and I honor that in them and where they were. And then now I have conversations. My grandparents have passed, but or they can have conversations with my parents or siblings or whatever. I think no, while that was accurate for you, it's actually a little bit, the economy is different. The possibilities are different. The abundance is there that it wasn't before. And yeah, it takes a choice to choose to think and see things a little bit differently. It's definitely a choice that we make. But then when, like I said earlier, it's almost like when you can't unsee it now. When you
Right.
start realizing there's so much abundance around us already that even look at like I want to buy, I don't know, I was looking at the little salt and pepper shakers and holders that go on my kitchen counter. So I hop on Amazon and there's like a gazillion listings. So even for a $20 product, we should see that there's so many options that are out there to be able to buy products, serve customers, all that kind of stuff. And it's just a silly example, but there's so much abundance already around us of products and services and clients and prospects and all that kind of stuff. So I just would encourage somebody who's listening today, like just consider opening your eyes a little bit more, maybe opening your ears to just learn and to hear. And it's like the Bible says, taste and see that it is good. Taste and see that life is good and that there's abundance all around us. And I just want to encourage somebody today as they're listening of taste and see that there's actually more out there for you, whether you're in your existing job or you want to start your own business or you're already an entrepreneur. Like taste and see that there's more available to you today.
I love that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
On that note, let's go ahead and wrap up by sharing with the audience how they can work with you or learn more from you.
Yeah. So I just dropped the link to my calendar. If you want to have a strategy call with me and just chit chat about where you are in life, if there's a way that I can help you to be able to move forward, I'd love to be able to talk with you. If something was engaging or interesting or really thought provoking, as Brittany and I have been having this conversation today, you can go ahead and book some time on my calendar and we'll have a chat. But that's the best way to get in touch with me right now. You're welcome to look at my LinkedIn profile and it has all that. I'll just drop the link in the post that you put out there, Brittany, and in the podcast notes as well.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much, Anita, for joining me today on the podcast and for going live with me on LinkedIn. And I love the message that you shared.
Hey, Brittany, one last thing. I just want to honor you. I want to honor your courage for doing something new today. So good job. I'm so proud of you. I just want to honor the audience that you serve, the way that you show up every day authentically to be able to serve at a really high level. I just want to say, keep going. You're doing an amazing job. And thank you so much for who you are and what you're doing. You're so needed in the marketplace today. So thank you so much for that. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for tuning in today, and a huge thank you to our guest for sharing such valuable insights. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback helps others discover the podcast, and it means the world to me as I continue to bring you content that supports your career change journey. If today's conversation resonated with you and you're feeling stuck in a career that doesn't fulfill you anymore, I'm here to help. My one-on-one career coaching program is designed specifically for women who are ready to break free from the grind and discover a career that truly excites them. In our sessions, we'll uncover what's holding you back, identify your true passions, and create a clear, actionable plan to transition you into a career that aligns with your deepest values. you can get in touch with me directly at shiftyourdayjob@gmail.com, or you can connect with me on social media at shiftyourdayjob. I'd love to hear from you and support you on this journey. Until next time, I'm your host, Brittany Cates, and together, let's shift your day job.